If you do not know anything about the Terri Missy Bevers case, please go check out a case summary video or article discussing the basic outline of her case prior to continuing to this video. This video will not make complete sense or fully resonate with you if you do not understand the basics of her case beforehand. I'm including a link in the description below to a 5-minute video that briefly summarizes the case. There are a lot, and I mean a lot, of videos out there covering the Missy Bevers case. Many of them include false and misleading information, so tread carefully. Over at the Gumshoe Stories, they have the most extensive and accurate coverage of the Missy Bevers case. I'll include a link to that channel in the description below as well. I am also including links to all source material found in my video below as well. If this is your first time checking out my channel, I would encourage you to check out my extensive coverage on the Stephen Kosher case. He has been missing for over 11 years. Foul play is clearly involved, and yet the police are still viewing his disappearance as a walk-away. I have received several requests from subscribers to look at another case, and I have been reluctant to do so because of the time, money, and energy it takes to properly research and investigate a case and then produce a video based on that material. With that being said, the Missy Bevers case kind of fell into my lap, and after looking at the evidence and then looking at what information and content is out there right now, I feel that I have something to offer to the conversation that no one else is currently offering. All right, so let's get into this detailed analysis of the Terri Missy Bevers case. In this detailed analysis, I'm using around 6 different computer and internet photography programs to analyze the surveillance footage from the SWFA and the Creekside Church. I am also using the Windows Zoom feature and Movavi screen capture. On Monday morning, April 18, 2016, at around 2 a.m., surveillance cameras at SWFA, a sports and outdoors store a little over a quarter of a mile away from where Missy was murdered, picked up some strange activity. This activity took place roughly 2 hours before Missy was murdered. Police have stated that the person seen driving in the SWFA footage may not be involved in Missy Bevers' murder. They have asked for this driver to come forward to explain themselves, but as of today, this driver has never come forward. This image shows the path that the driver took driving around the SWFA that morning. The yellow dashes indicate their line of travel the first time they go around the building. The red dashes indicate where they circled back around and parked, and the green dashes indicate their departure from the SWFA parking lot. At around 2 a.m., the driver pulls into the SWFA parking lot driving a 2010 to 2012 Nissan Altima. Important to note is that this is a 4-door Altima and not the 2-door version. Unfortunately, Altimas during this 3-year time period changed very little, so it is tough to tell them apart. Upon pulling into the parking lot, the driver behaves extremely suspicious, turning their headlights off and reducing their speed to a crawl. The driver takes an immediate right, driving around the edges of the parking lot rather than taking the most efficient and logical path, which is simply driving straight forward. One could argue that the driver did this to avoid having their face seen in case someone is inside the store. The driver continues around the edge of the parking lot counterclockwise, and here in this footage for a brief moment you can get a glimpse of the driver's face. I'll zoom in here and replay the video a few times. Here are some still photos as well. Clearly this person is Caucasian, and from my perspective, they appear to be a man. Their hair appears to be slicked back, thinning, shaved, or bald. I used an Adobe Photoshop filter, which allowed me to capture these shots that you see here. You can see the driver's head, and they appear to be wearing a hoodie or a ski mask with the mouth and nose portion pulled down under their chin. The driver continues counterclockwise, and as they reach the back corner of the building, they brake, turn their lights on, then off, and then on again. I believe the driver turns their lights off to get a better look inside the building, as their car lights could be casting reflections on the store windows. You can see in this footage that the driver has rolled down their window halfway and is moving their head around to get a better view inside the window. I was able to zoom in and capture these still shots of their face. As the driver pulls forward, they pass by 2 cars parked in the rear loading dock. If the driver was casing the store, it would have concerned him when he saw the cars parked there. This might explain why he turns his lights back on and quickly pulls away. Here's a small clip from an interview with a career burglar who robbed hundreds of homes and businesses in Texas over a 20-year period.
Does it have anything to do if there's vehicles in the driveway or in the garage?
Yes, sir. I'd spoken with a detective about that, particularly if I see a vehicle parked in the driveway or in front of the home, I'm most certainly not going there. It's a waste of my time. Why would I do that when people that aren't home generally don't park their cars in front of their homes? Right. And as I said, I didn't want to come into contact with anyone. That's a major deterrent.
As the driver pulls around the front side of the SWFA, we get a brief view inside the vehicle and can make out something on the driver's upper left chest that appears to be a canister strapped onto the vest, or possibly some mace or some other tool. In looking at the Creekside footage, we see the exact same object strapped in the exact same location on the killer's vest. After circling the SWFA building, instead of leaving, the driver pulls into a parking spot at the front of the parking lot that is partially covered by bushes and is directly under a lamp. The driver parks the car and remains inside for around 3 minutes. So what was the driver doing inside the vehicle during that 3 minutes? I zoomed in and saw that right after parking, the driver pulls something out and there is some movement inside near the front dash of the car. As I got even closer and used various filters, it appears that the driver is holding something in their right hand while moving their left hand up and down. After closer analysis, this object they're holding appears to be a black covered notebook with a white or tan back cover. I took this photo of myself holding a notebook as an example. I believe that the driver is casing this business and is writing down the information about the building inside the notebook for later use. The driver using a notebook instead of a cell phone or tablet leads me to believe this person may be older. Something else I want you all to notice is that just under the notebook, you can see a rectangle-shaped object that appears on the driver's chest area. In looking at the footage of the killer from inside the Creekside Church, we see a similar rectangular object on the killer's police vest. Right before the driver pulls out of the parking lot, we see them toss the notebook onto the dashboard. There was a camera mounted on the light pole directly above where the driver had parked. In these video clips, which I will replay repeatedly, you can see some of what the driver was wearing. Here are some still shots of the driver as they pull out of the parking lot. Notice that the color of the driver's outfit is the same color of the outfit of the killer at the Creekside Church. Another thing to notice is that in these shots, we should be seeing the driver's neck and head, but for some reason, it's not showing up. This could be caused by a few things, including a hoodie, a ski mask, a beanie pulled way down, an oversized hat, helmet, or some other head and face covering. In this photo that I used a solar filter on, notice the odd-shaped outline in the area where the driver's neckline is located, and then compare that with the killer's neckline from footage taken inside the Creekside Church using the exact same filter. Additionally, you can start to see something white on the back of the driver's clothing, near their top left shoulder. Looking at what the killer was wearing inside the church, we see the white police letters located on the back of the killer's vest in a similar area. Lastly, we can see something white appearing on the front left pocket of the driver's chest, which matches up with the police vest that the killer is wearing inside the church. The driver exits the SWFA parking lot at around 2:04 a.m. Now, something I want to point out here. Ask yourself, if you are familiar with this area, you would know that you can't take a left turn out of this parking lot and that your only option is a right turn. Watch how the driver is pulling out almost dead center of the driveway. Their car is not angled in one direction or another. If you know where you are going and you know you are making a right, wouldn't you hug the right side of the driveway as you leave and angle your vehicle to the right? There is a moment of confusion here as the driver pauses at the end of the driveway and then decides to turn right. Before we move on, let's discuss the license plate on the vehicle. So what state license plate is this? We can narrow the list of possible states down to 31 because this vehicle has a front plate and there are only 31 states that require front plates. Looking through the 31 possible states, I discovered only 4 states with license plates that are similar to the style of this vehicle's plates. Those states are Texas, Missouri, Maryland, and New Hampshire. Of these 4 remaining possible states, only Texas requires the vehicle registration sticker to be placed on the driver's side bottom corner of the windshield. Here in these photos, you can clearly see the registration stickers displayed on the driver's side bottom corner of the windshield. Therefore, I can say with a high degree of certainty that this is a Texas license plate. For the next step, I cut and pasted license plate characters, creating a list of the alphabet and numbers 0 to 9, and I put them on a sheet to use as a reference. After hours of capturing photos of the license plate, zooming in and using various filters, I discovered that the first character of the license plate appears to be the universal symbol for a disabled person, aka stickman in a wheelchair. Note the curve of the first character that is too wide, thin, and incomplete to be a letter or number. Also notice a dot at the top of the character that I believe is the head of the stick figure. The second character is absolutely an H. I am certain of that. There appears to be a small mark separating the first 2 characters from the remaining 3 to 4 characters. Texas plates sometimes include a miniature Texas state shape in between characters. So thus far, the license plate reads disability symbol H, then small Texas state shape. The 4th character appears to be a 9, but I am not certain of this. The 5th character I cannot say for sure, but based off there being a mark in the center and what appears to be rounding of the bottom of the character, it could only be a B, 3, 8, or 5. If there is a 6th character, I cannot see it. The last character I am fairly certain is a 1. I believe the police should be able to track down this person just by entering the first 3 characters into their database. The police did subpoena Google, and they requested a data dump of all cell phone activity around SWFA, as well as the Creekside Church, for the morning of April 18th. Reportedly, they did not find anything. In reviewing the surveillance footage and seeing the driver of this vehicle using a notepad, it doesn't surprise me that there was no cell phone activity. 19 minutes after the driver pulls out of the parking lot at SWFA, motion camera sensors are detected at the Creekside Church at 2:23 a.m. The killer appears on church camera first at around 3:50 a.m. When the police officers arrived on the scene hours later, they discovered several exterior and interior doors damaged, as well as broken glass throughout the inside of the church. The police have not released all the surveillance footage from inside the church, but let's take a look at the footage they have released. In this first shot of the killer, notice their strange mannerisms. As they walk down the hall, they are using the wall to support them, suggesting that they have an injury, that they're disabled, they're an older person possibly, or they're under the influence of drugs, or who knows, maybe a combination of a few of these things. I'll go into this more in detail later. At this point, let's take a closer look at the outfit the killer is wearing. The police tactical vest they are wearing can be purchased online from $40 to a few $100s. The helmet they are wearing appears to be a plastic toy replica, as the professional grade tactical helmets are matte and not glossy. Zooming in on the killer's face, you can see what appears to be a ski mask. Here's some more close-up photos of the killer's face. Here's a comparison photo with the close-up shot of the driver at the SWFA. Overall, the gear this person is wearing is not expensive or difficult to acquire. In this footage, we see the killer become interested in something on the wall. Possibly the writing, or possibly they're looking for something else they can attempt to break into. But I just want to point out how the killer doesn't seem familiar with this church, and they do appear to genuinely be exploring. In this next shot, we see the same lack of knowledge of the layout of the church as the killer pulls on the Dutch doors of the nursery. We see a moment of surprise when only half the door opens, and then when the killer finally does get both doors open and they look inside, he quickly realizes there's nothing of interest in the room and moves on, leaving the doors open. Zooming in here and using Photoshop and Lightroom, I was able to capture what I feel is the best image of the killer's face that is available. So now let's take a closer look at the killer's feet and their bizarre style of walking and moving. It has long been stated that the killer has what's called out-toeing, or more commonly referred to as duck feet. I bought into this idea initially, but there was something about the killer's right foot that really bothered me. The right foot seemed as though it was stuck in place. It didn't move naturally and appeared to slap down on the ground instead of rolling. I went through every shot, one at a time, hoping to see something I had missed. As I went through this clip, frame by frame, I noticed a little flash of white appear near the killer's ankle as he strolled over to the Dutch doors. I zoomed in and noticed something didn't look right with his ankle. I captured the screen, took the photo over to Photoshop, and ran it through multiple filters, and that's when I saw it. The killer has a prosthetic right leg. And the brief flash of white is the stuffing that is put inside the shoe to help hold a prosthetic leg in place. I quickly zoomed in and looked for other shots to back up this discovery. And a few seconds later, after the killer leaves the Dutch doors, his pant leg flips up for a brief second, and you can see the prosthetic leg perfectly. Now it all made sense. Everything fell into place. This is why the killer was leaning against the wall. This is why the driver at the SWFA has a disability license plate. And this is why he murdered Missy Beaver instead of fleeing the scene. I hear a lot of people say, well, if he was there to steal stuff, then why didn't he steal anything? Well, he did. We see in this shot where he clearly comes out of room 10, which is the youth group room, carrying a slim white box. The killer did not have this on him when he went into that room, and we do not see him carrying it at any other point in the video prior to entering that room. If you're a hitman or you're there to target Missy, why would you pick up random things and carry them around? People are saying that the killer didn't bring a bag to stash stolen items in, so clearly they weren't there to steal. The killer has a tactical vest on that is covered in large pockets. It is highly likely that the killer did steal things and deposited them into one of these pockets or in their pants pockets. There are no cameras inside the rooms, so we cannot see what they are doing in there. If the killer did steal something of value, the police may not reveal this information because they know only the killer will know the details of the items stolen. They could use this information to corner the killer down the road or capture them when they attempt to pawn or sell the items. You also must remember that the killer was only seen on church camera for around 30 minutes. And in that 30 minutes, the killer is seen trying to pry open doors and bust out windows. And frequently, they fail to gain access to these locked rooms. Therefore, a lot of their time was lost trying to get into the rooms that may have had things of value. The fact that they couldn't get into the rooms that had valuables may explain why nothing of value was noted as being stolen. The killer broke into the church early Monday morning. Now let me ask you, if you were going to rob a church, what day and time of the week would be the optimal day and time to rob the church? That's right, early Monday morning. You have all the church offerings and donations coming in and being stashed in the church prior to a church member taking the money and depositing it into a bank account Monday afternoon. Church burglaries are not as random and rarely occurring as some might think. Around the time of Missy's murder, there were other burglaries of churches that took place in Northeast Texas. And in the years that have passed, there have been countless burglaries of churches in Northeast Texas. In fact, just recently, Jonathan Calvin Hamilton was captured and charged with breaking into over a dozen churches just a few hours away from where Missy was murdered. A Northeastern church pastor was recently murdered in his own church when he came across a burglar hiding out in the men's bathroom. Go to a search engine and type in church burglaries, and you'll find hundreds of articles and pictures. There is so little information on Missy Beaver's killer that all we can do at this point is speculate about who the killer might be. I understand there's going to be some disagreement about how I profile this killer, and I welcome it in the comments below, but please, no personal attacks or rhetorical attacks. Those types of comments will be removed. Alright, so number one, I believe the killer is male. I agree that this person has feminine qualities, and I don't rule it out entirely, but I would say I'm 95% sure this is a male. In looking at all of the pictures and surveillance footage, I believe the killer has more masculine traits than feminine. People who argue that this person walks and swings the hammer in a feminine style need to consider that this person is probably older in age and clearly has a disability, and may even have some form of a mental disability as well. Also factor in that this person clearly does not exercise much, which leads to a sedentary lifestyle that frequently creates traditionally feminine traits to appear in males. I estimate the killer is around 5'6" to 5'8" in height. They are Caucasian, they are right-handed, and they have a right prosthetic leg. I believe this person is anywhere between 45 to mid-60s. I don't believe the killer regularly attended the Creekside Church. In fact, I don't think the killer is even from that town. The killer may use crutches, a cane, or a wheelchair. The fact that the killer is missing a leg and may be possibly mentally challenged would make the killer more likely to evade suspicion. The killer possibly sold or traded in their Ultima in 2016 or 2017. And since Missy's murder, the killer may have moved out of state. I don't believe the killer has a high IQ. I would guess average to below average IQ. The killer is organized and methodical, but that doesn't equate to high IQ because they have to be organized and methodical in order to offset their disability. This burglar must avoid confrontation at all costs because they cannot escape. I believe this criminal has burglarized before. Police should check their records for a burglar who has been busted in the past with a prosthetic right leg. Police should also check their records for a burglar that follows this similar mode of operation. I feel the killer probably lives in another city, such as Fort Worth, Dallas, or Waco, and they are branching out into neighboring cities. Taking all of this into consideration, the answer to me is clear. This was a burglary interrupted. Missy entered the building that morning, heard a sound, or saw something strange, and went to check it out. The killer may have seen or heard her come in, hid in a room, and ambushed her when she came looking for him. It's also possible that Missy walked in on him, catching him in the act, and in a moment of shock, he attempted to flee, but Missy attempted to stop him or apprehend him. Given that this killer is disabled, Missy probably cornered him, and he was left with no other option than to fight, as escape would have been impossible. Had Missy noticed his disability, she would have felt empowered and felt confident in confronting and apprehending the criminal. Thank you so much for checking out this detailed analysis of the Missy Beaver case. Please toss me a like if you enjoyed this content, and subscribe to my channel for future videos covering the Stephen Kosher case as well as other cases from time to time.